All right, good day, everyone. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be starting to talk about how to factor. Okay, hopefully this is a little bit of review for you, but obviously we're going to take our time with it just because it is such an important piece of everything that we're going to be doing. Within class tomorrow, we'll be going through these extensively, and then on top of that, we'll be going through almost like a couple of days of just working through these types of problems, really gathering this information back just because this part is so important within this class. Okay, we have to be able to factor moving forward. You're going to see factoring become a very prominent thing in the last or the next like 3 units. It's going to just pop up everywhere. So we want to be able to have this skill down and pat so that we can continue on to really improve as we go along. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly talk about how to actually solve these out, how to set them up, and how to kind of work through it. Okay. So starting off, we're going to use something called X method. Okay, X method is going to be our way of factoring out a trinomial like we see here. Okay, now these different trinomials, they're going to be done in a very specific way. So understand that the setup is going to be huge for you. We have to be able to set these up correctly. Once we have the setup down, they are fairly straightforward. They're just a process. We have to follow a process to solve. Okay, so here's how this works. All right. First and foremost, I have this little X for me right here. Okay, my goal is to fill out this X. Okay, to do this, I need to be able to place numbers on both the top and the bottom of the X. Okay, the top of the X is always the first number times the last number. So 10 and 3. So I'm going to do 10 times 3, which is 30. Okay. So the top of your X is always found out by taking the first and the last number and multiplying. Next, we have to find the bottom value. Well, the bottom value is always going to be the middle number, not the X with it, just the number. So I have 11. Okay. Now, when I do this, technically my X is officially set up. So now what I have to do is I have to think of two numbers that multiply to 30, the top number, and add to 11, the bottom number. Okay? That's going to be my ultimate goal for this X. I got to think of the two numbers that go on the side that are going to multiply to 30 and add to 11. Well, if you take the time to think about it, you kind of have to do a little bit of guess and check. You have to work through the problems. We end up getting the two numbers, 6 and 5. Okay? Which makes sense. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 plus 5 is 11. So those both check out. Okay? So officially, once I get that step done, my X is completed. Now what I have to do is I actually have to start to rearrange the problem. I want to try to get to the step that we had yesterday where we were grouping values together and we were taking out a GCF. Well, in this problem here, I look at it as almost the same exact thing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this middle number up. So this 11 is going to be split up into the two numbers we have here. So I'm going to rewrite 10x squared and positive 3. The first and the last number are always going to stay the same. The value that's going to change when I rewrite the problem is going to be the two numbers that I have from the X. I had a 6, so I'm going to write plus 6x. And I had a 5, so I'm going to write plus 5x. Okay? Notice how these two values got inputted in the middle here instead of the 11x. Okay? At this point, what I can do is follow the same steps we did yesterday. I'm going to group the first two and the last two together, and I'm going to take out a GCF. Well, 10x squared and 6x both have a 2 in common and an x in common. So when I do that, 10 divided by 2 is 5. X squared, if I took one of those x's away, is just going to be a single x. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And if I took away 1x, there's none left, so I can close my parenthesis. Okay? Now, same thing over here. 5x plus 3. There is no greatest common factor there. So I'm just going to take out a 1 because I got to take out some number. And this would stay 5x plus 3. Well, we talked about this yesterday. If these two values match, that means we've done it correctly. So now all I have to do is simplify this. The two outside values, 2x plus 1, become a single answer. And then one of the matching values, 5x plus 3, become my other answer. And this is factored out. Okay? Note, in this problem, the main thing we're doing is we're trying to use our x to break apart that middle number, and then we use our rules from yesterday with grouping to simplify it. Let's go ahead and look at one more. Number 2. Let's move a little bit fast, so let's work through this. Okay, we have 2x squared minus 13x plus 21. Once again, the top number is always going to be first times the last. 2 times 21 is 42. And then the middle value, negative 13, goes on bottom. We need to think of two values that multiply to the top and add to the bottom. My thought process is now that I have a negative value on bottom, what I'm going to do is I have to think, okay, well, I need negative numbers now. If I did negative 6 and negative 7, added up, give me negative 13, multiplied, give me positive, because negative times a negative. So negative 6 times negative 7 gives me positive 42. So now I'm going to rewrite the equation. The first value and the last value never change. And the middle numbers come from the x, the negative 6 and the negative 7. Negative 6x minus 7x. At this point, we group and we simplify. 2x squared minus 6x. Well, 2 and 6 both have a 2 in common. That's the number that can go into both of those. X squared and x, I could take an x away. 2 divided by 2 would cancel. X squared divided by x, there's just an x left over. Negative 6 divided by 2 would be negative 3. I had an x, but I took it away, so I can go ahead and close that parenthesis. For this next one, I have a negative in front. I don't want to have a negative in front, so I'm going to take it out of the problem. So I got to think between 7 and 21, what's the greatest common factor? Well, it's going to be negative 7. And then on top of that, I'm trying to think, can I take an x away from both of them? Well, no, because the 21 does not have an x. So I can only take a negative 7 out. When I do that, this becomes x. 21 divided by negative 7 is negative 3. And then I go ahead and write out my final answer. 2x minus 7, my two outside values become 1. And then one of my matching values become 1 to get to my final value. Okay? Now, this is the basics of factoring. Notice how a lot of it is just setup. If I can set up the x correctly, a lot of it's guided for me. Okay? So that's going to be one of the first key things for you to kind of take into account. How do we set up the x's? How do we work through it? Now, we're going to be going over this for the next couple of days. So we're only going to do a little bit each time. But this is kind of the first day where we're actually going through full factoring. Okay? Besides that, if you have any questions, bring them to class tomorrow. We'll be doing a lot of these as we move forward. But I will see you, and you have a great day.